Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you are all enjoying the conference. A brief introduction to myself. My name is Pranay. I am a doctoral candidate at the Royal College of Arts, London, in the Innovation Design Engineering Department. And today I will be talking to you about sustainability in design education, specifically for medical devices and healthcare. As an industrial designer working in the healthcare industry, I was motivated to write about this, seeing the recent explosion of design programs specifically aimed at healthcare and how they could encourage sustainability in the practice of design for healthcare. This paper was written along with my supervisor and head of Department of Innovation Design Engineering, Professor Wang. The world population is still growing beyond 7.7 billion, and as healthcare improves, people are living longer and contributing to a larger percentage of the aging population in all countries. This means that healthcare systems need to be upgraded constantly to meet the requirements of the changing demographics. This encourages a stronger focus on education systems to produce more workers to contribute to the healthcare sector. But the medical device ecosystem that has developed over the last 50 years has promoted excessive wastage of resources to ensure the safety of the patients and sterility of the hospital environment. The use of single-use disposable instruments and the unrestricted incineration of medical waste leads to the production of toxic gases and greenhouse gas emissions. Most hospitals are unable to cope with the rising amounts of waste, and thus a significant amount of waste gets disposed of in unregulated manners, often leaching chemicals like lead and mercury into our environment. In the last 5 years, design education programs specifically aimed at healthcare and medical technology have sprouted all over the world, focusing on the design of medical technology, innovation and management in healthcare, understanding healthcare systems, visualization of medical systems, graphic design in healthcare, and even healthcare design research. Our study identified 54 such programs ranging from diploma and certificate programs to graduate and doctoral level programs. The programs were being run by well-established institutes and under faculty with experience in the healthcare industry. The pie chart here shows the variation in program levels that were identified in our study. Almost half of the programs identified were master's level, and almost a third of the programs were certificate programs. The certificate programs were graduate, postgraduate, and some even based on online platforms. We also tried to see where these programs were based. 22 of the 54 programs were based in the US, and 14 of them were based in the United Kingdom. This may have been biased because of the language the search was conducted in. We also noticed that there were 4 programs based in institutes in Dublin itself, and another 3 based in London. We looked at the information provided by each program on the course curriculum, the aim of the program, and what students were expected to take away from the program. Our study was specifically looking at whether the programs touched upon sustainability in healthcare in any way, and if so, how. Based on the information provided on the program websites, we found the terms systems thinking, sustainability, lean thinking, and Six Sigma resonating with more than half the programs studied. But 21 out of the 54 programs studied had no mention of sustainability or the indication of responsible use of resources. The programs were focused on meeting the needs of immediate stakeholders involved, whether it be the patient, the clinician, the hospital, or the business being developed. It is important to recognize that developing medical devices and producing them to be used in hospitals is a time and capital-intensive process. The products require long testing periods and need to go through multiple regulations to be deemed usable on a commercial scale. There are so many constraints involved in designing and manufacturing these products that making the product sustainable and eco-conscious becomes yet another constraint that designers would prefer to avoid. They would rather stick to meeting the existing regulations and ensure business feasibility than risk the market failure of the product based on low carbon emissions. A study by Moultrie and colleagues at Cambridge University shows that one of the reasons designers face this challenge is because they are not educated to use concepts of sustainability in practice. Their awareness of this issue stems only from public awareness and a growing concern over the human impact on the environment. As science has all but confirmed that humans have a significant contribution to climate change, it is important to move towards more sustainable practices in design. Through this study, we highlight 5 aspects of design education which can be explored to encourage the next generation of designers to practice in a responsible and holistic manner. The first of these 5 aspects is pedagogy. When we looked at higher education in design for healthcare, we observed a variety of formats offered to students, ranging from 3-month certificate courses to 3-year bachelor and doctoral programs. Each of these formats and the aim with which the courses were set up dictates most of the content that is taught and the way the modules are organized. Thus, it is important to understand how sustainability fits with specialized education catered towards a field such as design for healthcare. It can be treated as one of the many focuses, in which case it becomes a seminar, a module, or a project. Alternatively, it can be embedded as a core philosophy of design. As Dieter Rams is often heard saying, "Weniger ist besser," which translates to "less is better." The question here is not of the philosophy you adopt, but of what is more effective as a pedagogy. The way design is taught must be constantly updated to meet the needs of society. While today one of the critical issues in society is of sustainability, there may be very different needs of society in the future. Although we cannot be omniscient, we can be holistic in our process of understanding the context by adopting a systems approach to problem solving. Keeping up with the changes in context, we also need to upgrade the way knowledge is disseminated. Out of the 17 certificate programs identified in this study, 7 were online courses. These 7 courses were being conducted by highly reputed institutions. The online platform is becoming a popular mode of knowledge dissemination, especially theoretical knowledge. From the perspective of sustainability, since the concept itself is applicable in almost all areas of life, awareness is key to encourage a less environmentally damaging lifestyle. Thus, online platforms can be used effectively in such situations and can be balanced with hands-on experience through classroom teaching and project-based learning. It is important to explore the best use of different platforms for different aspects of knowledge dissemination. The second aspect of design education that we explored was the understanding of design itself. Over the last 60 years, design education has traditionally evolved from the art and science of making, and thus there is a strong focus on making as a form of solution finding. But now, as the world shifts its focus to information and data, and the value that access can generate, the stress is shared between the act of making and the act of giving access to objects being made. Due to the explosion in population and changing demographics of countries, we can see a shift from ownership-based economies to sharing economies. From a sustainability point of view, we can see the negative influences of excessive production and consumption and how systems have been exploited to expand the wealth gap rather than contract it. In such a context, it becomes more important than ever to stress on acting for change, but not limiting the act to making. We must recognize that making is an important aspect of designing solutions, but not the only aspect. Not making is equally important, if not more important, in certain situations. Students must be encouraged to solve problems with or without making yet another product-based solution. As the boundaries between disciplines get blurred with access to new forms of technology and learning tools, the concept of collaborative problem solving becomes the need of the hour. The third aspect of design education that we looked at is how can institutes define sustainability in their programs? Based on the programs we studied, most did not explicitly mention sustainability in their program overview. If a design education program was to engage students with concepts of sustainability, should they make it explicit or implicit? Ideally, social, technological, and environmental sustainability should be inherently adopted by design solutions. This may refer to modularity of products, services, and systems, responsible and efficient use of resources, or even the elimination of toxic elements from the economic cycle of a business. But as has been discussed earlier, design education until recently has not focused much on the wider implications of the designs produced and marketed. To make sustainability an explicit term used in program overviews shifts the focus from the intended aim of the program. But to not use the term explicitly gives the impression that the program does not focus on sustainability at all. This paradox is contextual and can be answered depending on the current understanding and awareness on sustainability of the viewers reading the program description page. Regardless of how an institution addresses this issue, it is an issue worth addressing if the institute is interested in promoting sustainability through their design education programs. The fourth aspect of design education that we explored is that of the gap between design education and design practice in sustainability. Even though there is a strong move towards sustainable practices all over the world, there is still little evidence to prove the success of this movement. Institutes are actively promoting the exploration of sustainable alternatives to design solutions that exist in the market today, but very few solutions trickle down into the market, let alone sustain themselves as businesses. There are multiple reasons for this in the medical industry, including the lack of financial incentives to support sustainability, poor regulations to safeguard against toxic materials, and the added effort required to validate and design for sustainability. Can this be linked to a lack of ethics in design practice? The concept of ethics in medicine is well established, with the Hippocratic Oath forming the foundations of ethical practice right from the time of Hippocrates. But the same cannot be said of design in healthcare. Our study explored the use of the term ethics or ethical in the program descriptions, and very few had any description pointing towards ethics in designing and making medical devices. This leads us to question, what are the ethics in design practice? And is sustainability in design an ethical stance? One could argue that a scientifically proven phenomenon does not require an ethical stance, but can ethics be one way of permeating the design education framework to promote sustainability in design practice? These are questions that become increasingly important in today's society. As Victor Papanek wrote back in 1971, there are professions more harmful than industrial design, but very few of them. The fifth and final aspect we have explored is slightly tangential to the topic, but equally important. We have so far covered aspects of sustainability in design education. But what about sustainability of design education? The traditional structure of education has been tailored towards the intellectual development of individuals so as to produce people who can think for themselves and act on their own thought process. This has led to the glorification of one-man armies and placing the creative genius at the top of the pyramid. As design becomes a recognized field of study in itself, it is important to understand that no matter how well individuals perform in the safe houses of educational institutions, they will always be working in teams to create meaningful outcomes. The problem with the individual-focused education model is that knowledge created or acquired by an individual tends to stay with the individual, failing to pass on to others in the same environment. This retards the knowledge exchange process, often stifling innovation. We need to develop collaborative systems of education, and collaboration not just between designers, but between people from different fields too. Design is contextual and interdisciplinary in nature. There needs to be more emphasis on co-creation and teamwork to encourage holistic thinking and multiple perspectives in design education, especially for fields like medical devices and healthcare, where the solutions developed are critical for health and well-being. These 5 aspects are neither exhaustive nor definitive in exploring sustainable design education, but they were identified as important for design education in healthcare and medical devices. We design products and systems to be used, but never treat them as objects that live a life of their own. This apathy towards products that serve our needs has led to the creation of waste that we now fail to deal with. The irony of the situation is that the devices we create to take care of our health now deteriorate the environment around us, inadvertently affecting our health again. There is an urgent need to revise design education at multiple levels. There is a need to understand the impact of our creations and to holistically approach design as a practice. We hope that this paper acts as a stimulus to reassess how we teach design, how we practice design, and how education translates to practice. I would like to thank you all for bearing with me, and I thank the conference organizers for providing us with this platform. I hope you all enjoy the rest of this conference. Take care and best wishes. Thank you.